Here we're going to have a look at the biomechanic markers that dictate a rushed breath. So a rushed breath is where the heads move too fast to go get air, and what can happen is it can cause a lot of instability in the stroke. If the stroke is unstable, it means our arms and legs are doing different movements to try find stability instead of creating movements that propel us forward, which means we get that decrease in efficiency and decrease in yield. To define our biomechanic marker for finding if the breath is rushed, we're going to define the end of the pull phase. Now we define the end of the pull phase as the arm breaching the surface of the water. The reason we define it as the arm breaching the surface of the water is because the pull phase is the propulsion phase. And when the arm is no longer in the water in motion, the pull phase is no longer active. So we're going to freeze frame at this point here. Now really we don't need to use our lines for this example because we've already defined where the bicep-tricep area of the arm is breaching the surface. But we're going to set this line as the surface of the water to help us out. What we want to identify to see if we have a rushed breath is we're going to see whether the mouth is receiving air or not at this point in time. At this point in time, if the mouth is still underneath the water, then we do not have a rushed breath. If we had an example where the mouth was above the water and at this point in time the swimmer was already receiving air, then we'd have a rushed breath. We can see an example of this right here. You'll see that when this swimmer's arm breaches the surface of the water on their breathing stroke, their mouth is already outside the water to receive air. Let's take a look on this next stroke. So as this swimmer bicep-tricep area of the arm breaches the surface of the water, they have already received air much sooner. In fact, we can see that the swimmer is receiving air well before the pull phase is over. Now the reason that the breath must occur after that point is to do with how the breath mechanics works. Even though this is great for identification, the way that we actually control the breath is to do with head control and torso control. As we can see here with Andy's breath, the way that he controls his breathing is to do with the movement of his torso and the alignment of his head. As he rotates his hips, his head maintains the same position that the head had to the body prior to the hips rotating. As the body rolls, he leaves his head in the same position to his body, which means that his body carries his head outside the water to find air. This means that his stroke remains stable, because at some point we need the body or the head to maintain stability while we're moving. If our head rushes to find air ahead of the rotation of the body loses stability, and we can see the reactions of that here. The body dips below the water, we see a splicing movement coming from the legs and more of a drop from the leading arm as the limbs try find stability. A key takeaway here is that even though we can identify our biomechanic markers to see if we have a rushed breath, it's all about the fundamental control of the stroke, about making sure that the torso is working with the stroke, and we place our breath on top of the working stroke. To see the fundamentals of the breath and how to practice this yourself, check out the video on our channel.